And we'll now go to resuming debate, and the Honourable Member for Toronto Danforth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to begin by thanking the member for York Centre for sponsoring Bill S-232 to establish Canadian Jewish Heritage Month. Preparing for this debate has had me think about what will we be celebrating, how will we be doing that? And it will mean different things for different people. And that is what I find so exciting about having Canadian Jewish Heritage Month, is it will give us an opportunity to explore and learn more about our rich Jewish heritage here in Canada. When I think about Canadian Jewish heritage, I think about our history, food, and some strong Jewish women who have paved the way for us. On history, I recently discovered that only a few blocks away from my home are two of the oldest Jewish cemeteries in Toronto. These are two small, fairly nondescript little cemeteries you might not normally notice. But I'm hoping that having a month like Canadian Jewish Heritage Month will give us an opportunity to learn more about these hidden spaces. One of the cemeteries is located on Pape, just south of Gerrard. It's behind Maddie Eckler Community Centre, and this is the first Jewish cemetery in all of Toronto. It was established in 1849, before we even had the first synagogue in the city of Toronto. Its administration was taken over by the Holy Blossom Temple, and it has been closed since 1930. But if somebody's ever walking along Pape behind Maddie Eckler, they should take a peek because it's just another little piece of our history. The other historical cemetery is on Jones Avenue, just south of Strathcona. And as you walk along Jones, you can see some Hebrew writing on a wall, but otherwise you might not notice that it's there. This is the second oldest Jewish cemetery in the city of Toronto. It was bought as farmland in 1883, and it was consecrated in 1896. It's where the city's first Orthodox rabbi, Joseph Weinreb, is buried. And this cemetery is still in operation, but on a very limited basis. In fact, the last burial was in 2008. So there are parts of our history that are also going to take us a moment to challenge the way we see our Canadian history and our path forward. And when I say this, I think about the St. Louis, on which over 900 Jewish refugees fleeing the Second World War were seeking refuge in Canada in 1939. And the story is fairly well known. We've talked about it here. But the boat was turned away because the feeling at the time in Canada was that none was too many. And this is a dark moment for Canadian history. But what I like is to bring it back to my communities. There's a beautiful narrative arc to this story. And that is that I recently learned that one of the survivors of St. Louis made it to Canada, had a family, and members of her family are part of the Danforth Jewish Circle in my community. And where I see beautiful light and where we can learn lessons from our history is that the Danforth Jewish Circle has been active in sponsoring a Syrian refugee family. So we see this wonderful story of our own history of many Jewish people coming here as refugees and then now returning that circle and sponsoring people and welcoming to our country. I had the opportunity to meet the family that was sponsored, and they're flourishing due to their own hard work, but also because of the support they're receiving from the community. So in retelling our history as part of Canadian Jewish Heritage Month, we also have an opportunity to learn from our lessons from the past and see how we can pave a better future going forward. Now, as a Jewish woman, Canadian Jewish woman, I am proud of some of the strong Jewish women who have come before me and formed part of our heritage. The Heritage Committee, on which I sit, recently did a study on women and girls in sports, and that was tabled in the House quite recently. And when we look at women and girls in sports, we owe a lot to the leadership of a female Jewish athlete. And if I could take a moment, I recently got this book of revised and updated, a book of lists. And in it, I was happy to see that Abby Hoffman was included in Lanny Marchant's 7 gritty and groundbreaking athletic performances by women. And when she describes Abby Hoffman, she says, when Abby was 9, she wanted to play in a boys' hockey league, so she cut her hair short and registered as Ab Hoffman. She was known for her speed, skills, and determination that matched or bettered those of the boys with whom she played. She went on to compete in 4 Olympics between 1964 and 1976 and medaled at the Pan Am Games. I'm going to skip along a bit. But Abby's efforts helped to open the University of Toronto's Heart House to women after initially being an all-male facility, and that was a big change. She's part of the reason why women can now be at Heart House. And she was also the first woman to carry the Canadian flag in the Olympic opening ceremonies at the 1976 Summer Olympics in Montreal. Now, I would like to do a shout out that we can take a moment to recognize some strong Canadian Jewish women who have contributed. I'd also like to talk about another strong Jewish woman, and that is Justice Rosie Abella of our Supreme Court of Canada. Her story, as born as a refugee in Germany, coming to Canada following the Second World War, and now she serves on our highest court. It's inspirational. And this year, she was named the Global Jurist of the Year for her defense of human rights. But we need to recognize some of the strong Jewish women who we have in our community, and I think that that will be at the center of so many of our stories when we're looking at Canadian Jewish Heritage Month. Now, it might be because of the hour of this debate and feeling a bit peckish at the moment, but I can't talk about Jewish heritage without talking about food. And food is at the heart of any other culture. One of my favorite Jewish foods that has an important part of Canadian Jewish heritage is bagels. So all through university, when I studied at McGill, my late night snack was at the St. Viator Bagel Bakery down the street. It was right around the corner from me. And to this day, I love Montreal bagels. Bagels are a Canadian Jewish treat. I tried to track down the history of the Montreal bagel, only to discover that it is shrouded in mystery and controversy. Who knew? The Canadian Encyclopedia actually says, the Montreal bagel is one of Canada's most iconic and coveted snacks. Its origins are contested and murky. Food and controversy. Now, that piques my interest. I'm not going to be able to resolve that controversy tonight, but I can let you know a little bit about the history. Some say the bagels were brought to Montreal by Chaim Seligman, who helped to set up St. Viator Bagel Bakery, the store where I bought my bagels during my university years. Others say it was Isidore Schlafman, who was the person who started the Fairmont Bagel Bakery, another popular bagel shop, which continues to be managed by the same family. And for the record, I also enjoy Fairmont Bagel Bakery bagels. It's just they were a little farther from my apartment. And now, when we look at this history, the story's establishment of the St. Viator Bagel Bakery is not at all murky, and it tells a really touching story. The history does draw a story of moving from one place of adversity to building a better future in Canada. The shop founder, Mayer Lekowitz, grew up in a shtetl near Krakow, Poland. He was sent to Buchenwald concentration camp in 1942. Heartbreakingly, he apparently told a high school class about his experience at the concentration camp by saying, "At Buchenwald, all I dreamt of was a piece of bread." After the war, he remained in Germany until 1952, when he was discovered by Jewish Immigration Aid Services of Canada and moved to Montreal. In Montreal, he got a job at a bagel bakery on Saint Laurent, and in 1957, he set up the St. Viator Bagel Shop with Mr. Seligman, and that is how we have the shop today. So when we celebrate people, we celebrate food, we celebrate moments in our history, and we take our lessons forward. There are so many aspects of Canadian Jewish heritage that we could focus upon once this bill passes to recognize Canadian Jewish Heritage Month. I touched on a few parts, but the magic to me is that the establishment of this month allows us to learn so much more. And I would like to take the moment to thank once again the member for York Centre for bringing us this opportunity. I look forward to it. Thank you.